Go ahead. All right. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Dean?
We're going to ask Margie or Vince to confirm that the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been provided of today's meeting.
I confirm that the packet was posted and the required notice of the meeting was provided.
So we have provided our proper advance notice of today's meeting and the agenda items. So I'm going to call roll to confirm that we have a quorum. Board Member Noonan.
Here.
Board Member Kitchen.
Here.
Board Member Romy. Chair Martins.
Here.
The quorum of the Design Review Board being 3 members, we do have a quorum, and having provided notice, we can proceed with today's business.
Okay, then. First item on the business is approval of minutes from the February 10th regular meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those? Any corrections, changes, or comments? Okay, and if there are none, I'll accept a motion.
I would move to approve the minutes as presented.
Yeah, Katie moves, and
I'll second it.
Jennifer seconds. All right, no further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, minutes approved. On to our new business, amended application CC22-1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At your February 10th meeting, there was a presentation made by Gleason and Son Signs, and they put forward a set of plans and elevations for signage at the proposed Prickly Pear Restaurant at 123 South Santa Fe, directly north and abutting the Campbell Plaza. And that sign package featured a wall sign that was primarily in a black and white color, as well as a projecting sign placed midpoint on the wall projecting over the Santa Fe sidewalk. And so this was the item that was presented to and voted on by the board, and you did review that. You did find it to be in conformance with the design guidelines for downtown Salina, and you voted to approve that sign package. Subsequent to that meeting, staff had some contact with the restaurant owner, and the restaurant owner indicated that that was not the final decision for their concept for adding signage, and indicated that they had a different sign concept they wanted to present. If you'll recall, in many of our items, we have a condition that says if there's any significant changes to the sign size, design, or materials approved by the board, these will be presented to staff to determine whether any additional review by the board is required. So staff reviewed this and found that the sign proposal was different enough that we should bring it back to the board to present it for your review. And so this has come back to you for additional review. The sign as proposed would be multicolored instead of the black and white theme. It would be round in shape, and it would hang over the sidewalk on a pole. It would be more of a hanging sign than a projecting sign. And there are no plans to install a wall sign at this time. The actual dimensions of the sign and the construction materials were not provided, just this illustration. I think the only thing we would call your attention to that's somewhat unique in the downtown area is, as a general rule, businesses can have 3 square feet of sign area based on their building frontage. So this has 25 feet of frontage and could have 75 feet of sign area, but there's also a hard cap on projecting signs that if you have a 25-foot building frontage, projecting sign cannot exceed 30 square feet. From our vantage point, this doesn't appear to exceed that, but we'd want to get confirmation of the rough dimensions from the applicant. And so in our review, we found this to be in conformance with the design guidelines, and you would have the option of approving the amended application for the modified hanging sign. You could approve it subject to any conditions approved by a majority of board members. You could postpone this to a future meeting, or you could deny the application and upon making findings of fact for the reason to deny. In this case, staff would request some confirmation as to the rough dimensions of the proposed sign, the proposed construction materials, and the method of illumination, if any. And then we did make note of the fact that most of the information we've seen, prickly is spelled without the E, and this has prickly with the E, so we would just confirm it doesn't influence the approval or the sign permit, but our understanding, all previous correspondence was prickly was without the E, but we'll confirm that with the applicant. So at this point, as far as the appearance, the proportionality, the location, all that appears to conform. We would just want to confirm, one, the rough dimensions of the sign body itself, the construction materials that the sign would be made out of, and if it would have electricity or any illumination, either internal or external. So with that, I would take any questions that you would have for staff, and then we would hope to get some assistance from the applicant to clarify those three things.
Any comments or questions from anyone? I don't believe I have any, as far as prior discussion for the applicant. No? Then is the applicant, if you could step up and identify yourself. And
Hi, Tim Blake, Wheat State Hospitality, Prickly Pear owner. As far as the dimensions are concerned, there'll be a two-sided LED backlit sign, and from a dimensional standpoint, that was one thing we were looking for a little clarification on. We can make that however big we need to make that. It was more of just a conceptual approval that we were looking for, but we'll certainly make sure that we have that from a size standpoint within the.
okay, you say it's LED backlit. It looked like there were lights shining.
Well, it was described to me as a backlit.
I mean, okay.
There's a couple different ways that we can do that, and in that rendering there was downward-facing lights. It was described to me from the sign maker that we had do that concept that it would be LED backlit. If it makes a difference to the committee, we can definitely clarify that prior to installation, of course.
You wanted
Yeah,
to know
the
prior to.
primary, I mean, the distinction, Dustin, if you go back to the original rendering that was presented in February, in this type of application, when you're talking about a backlit sign, you have lighting, but the only portion that's actually lit is the individual letters. So at night, rather than the entire sign cabinet or panel being illuminated, you would just have the letters would be backlit so that they would show through. If this other sign is backlit, we just have to clarify what portions of that, because generally the term backlit means the entire cabinet is not illuminated. Those internal illumination means that everything that you see there in white is essentially illuminated at night, and then the individual letters are legible because the cabinet's illuminated. Backlit usually means like you would have lighting behind the grill and cantina there, and so the lettering would show. So.
Okay. Well, we're certainly happy to provide clarification. I can get the technical aspects of that to you. Sure, go ahead.
From an approval standpoint, Dean, does it matter in the guidelines of which one it is? Like if in this rendering, that is what they're doing versus a backlit? Or are you just asking the questions for clarification, or does it make a difference on
From
the
from the guidelines standpoint, the guidelines don't prohibit, they discourage a sign where the entire panel or cabinet is internally illuminated.
Okay.
They encourage the backlit sign, which is, instead of having the entire sign panel lit, just the letters are illuminated. It doesn't make any difference other from the standpoint of you being aware of what it is you're voting on and approving. If the board does not have any concern about whether this is a case where the whole panel's lit or just the individual letters, then we'll work that out at the sign permit stage. If there is a concern about that, then you could add a condition that the sign has to be backlit as opposed to internally illuminated.
So,
so if they followed that rendering with the exterior lights illuminating the entire sign, then that is fine in the sense of design guidelines. Correct?
Well, are you referring to an external light shining on the sign, or are you referring to an internal?
Isn't that what the rendering?
the rendering shows
Is-
internal light shining. It's hard to see in the picture, but when you put it up on the screen, you can see those lights up there.
So I may have to have Mr. Hers
See the,
narrate that for me.
Oh, it moved on me. So what Chair Martins is describing is you have this pole structure which attaches the sign to the building frontage, and it projects out over the Santa Fe sidewalk. And then off of that pole structure that supports the sign, there's a crossbar with LED lights that externally illuminate the north and south sides of the sign. So the sign that's being proposed has external, it appears to have external lighting that shines down onto the sign and illuminates it that way.
that's,
I mean, that's what's being proposed in the picture, but there are a couple of options. There's also the option of illuminating the sign by having a system in which there are light bulbs, LED or fluorescent or some other type, usually LED now, because that's how most signs are made, inside a cabinet with a surface or sign face on each sign that is, while it's opaque, it does allow for the light to shine through. And that's typically what you see in most signs in major commercial corridors. If you're driving down Ohio or 9th Street and you see a pole sign, usually what you see is you see that sign being illuminated internally. And so that would probably be the other option. And I think what Mr. Andrews said is that the design guidelines, they don't prohibit that type of signage, but they encourage other types of signage as a preference.
So
Other types of illumination of the
Illumination.
signage.
the design guidelines say that internal illumination of an entire sign panel is discouraged. If internal illumination is used, a system that backlights the sign is preferred. So you've got 3 sign options. The most preferred would either be external illumination, like is shown in this rendering, where the external lights are shining on the sign, or a backlit sign. The one that is not encouraged is an internally illuminated sign where the entire sign panel is lit. And so,
Okay,
so
that helps clarify for me. Thank you.
you would, if you are comfortable with all 3 of those options and you want staff to work it out at the permit stage, that would be, there would no additional action needed. If you have a preference for external illumination or backlighting, you could make that a condition.
do you think, I guess I'm asking for what your thought, internal illumination, is the discouraging of that, the idea that it's just going to be brighter and
Yeah,
more
we had that on the case recently of the Salina Chiropractic sign, and the
Right.
board restricted that to being backlit instead
be
of,
brighter than if
because
they
it,
just illuminated
because it had
that
a
way.
white sign panel.
Okay,
And it has more to do with glare and the level of glare and illumination.
but again, this one's permissible, so
Yes.
probably not quite as bright. Okay.
And it's also a matter of just being consistent with each sign as it comes, that we're applying the same
Standard.
criteria to them.
Do you have strong feelings one way or another?
I don't. I can take that back to our sign maker and I think execute that. We were more concerned with the overhang of the
overhang.
structure and it, because it was enough of a conceptual change that we,
Yeah.
before we, but would gladly work that out with staff prior to permitting.
Okay.
So right now, we have a recommended condition that the hanging sign may not exceed 30 square feet in size, because that's the maximum we can approve. We could either have a condition that says the sign must be LED backlit or externally illuminated, and add that as a condition, or you can say you don't have any concern about which of the three methods of illumination
Okay.
are chosen, and then staff would work it out at the sign permit stage.
I personally would like to add that condition, just to be consistent of what we've held every other sign that we've done downtown, at least while I've been on the board. I think consistency is important, so.
And just as a personal observation, I think the external light kind of gives it a more historical feel. I mean, if that makes
I agree.
sense.
I agree.
But, okay. Any other questions or comments from the commission or the property owner?
No, thank you.
Well, thank you. Then,
Tim, could you clarify whether the plan would be to have prickly with an E or no E?
oh, yes.
That'd be no E, consistent with the same spelling that we've used
Okay.
all along. I think they just
They did,
obviously misspelled that in a rendering.
got in a little bit of a hurry.
I guess so.
No, okay. All right,
Well, if you're open for a motion, I would make
yes.
a motion, okay? To approve the application with the condition that it will, use the two recommended, lighting option, one of the two, and, that it will conform to the square footage allotment.
Okay, have a motion, second available? Okay, Jennifer seconds.
Before we vote, we'd like to see if there's anyone from the public, either on Zoom or
Oh,
in the audience today, that has something they'd like to say or share.
Does not appear anybody speaking up, so,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. All right, then, thank you. I guess if we had a motion second, if no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a sign contractor you're working with on this one? Okay, different than Gleason? Okay. Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, so then the next item is application CC 22-3.
Yeah, so this application is related to a property right next door to the property we just discussed at 119 South Santa Fe, and that is the proposed location of the Hive Beauty Salon, and they're proposing the installation of a new wall-mounted sign with some outdoor light fixtures. And we have Tyler Waldorf here with Shockey Consulting, who did this review on behalf of the city. And we're going to turn it over to Tyler to give you an overview of the proposal, and Dustin will provide the graphics, and Tyler will provide an overview. So we'll turn it over to Tyler.
Great. Thank you, Dean. Good afternoon, everyone. As Dean mentioned, this is review of the Certificate of Compatibility application for the approval of the installation of new exterior wall-mounted signage and 4 outdoor light fixtures on the exterior of the building at 119 South Santa Fe Avenue for the Hive Salon and Spa. From the renderings and application materials that were submitted by the applicant, the proposed signage design is shown to be 23 inches high by 70 inches wide, as you can see there in the image that Dustin has pulled up, and is positioned above the entry along the existing storefront header there. From the information received, the signage will be painted using standard colors and have a clear Lexan back. The sign will be installed using threaded rivet nuts and will be illuminated with white LEDs. From the lighting standpoint, their proposal is for 4 outdoor light fixtures that you can see there that will be located on the same storefront header. Those exterior fixtures, we have an image of those as well, measure about 10 inches in height and 11 inches in width and protrude by about 12 3/4 inches from the exterior face of the building. Upon staff review, we feel that these elements, the signage and the lighting, do conform with the downtown Salina design guidelines. From the signage standpoint, they seem to be well proportioned and are within the allotted square footage given the 25-foot width storefront. The font also seems to be in line with the design guidelines, as do the colors and materials. From the lighting standpoint, the light fixtures are also conforming with the design guidelines in terms to relative appropriateness to the architectural features and materiality of the storefront and facade. Additionally, the fixtures, from what we can tell in the image, appear to be shielded, which is a preference within the design guidelines, and they illuminate features of the building and also the sidewalk below. So before you, for discussion, are 4 options. The first is to approve the application upon finding that the proposed exterior sign and installation of the 4 outdoor lights conform with the design guidelines. Option 2 is to approve, subject to any conditions that you may have as the design review board. Option 3 would be to postpone the consideration of the application. And option 4 would be to deny the application as presented upon making findings of fact for the reasons of the denial. Staff would request that the applicant confirm the method of illumination of the exterior sign, as it was just presented, illumination with white LEDs. And that, of course, would be agreed to by you, the design board. And then in terms of the light fixtures, confirmation from the applicant of the color and level of luminescence, of the outdoor lamp selection prior to confirmation that it conforms with the design guidelines. So with that, Dean, unless I missed anything, would open that to questions for staff from this applicant.
Does anybody have any questions of Tyler or want to have Dustin go back to a particular slide?
Any comments or questions before we?
No.
No. Okay. Mine just pertain to the items you already mentioned, so that we need to clarify. So in that case, we're ready to speak to representative of the property. Is that you, Nicole?
I think we have.
Yeah, that would be me. Sorry. Hi.
Yeah. Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
Okay. So yeah, so if you could tell us a little bit like the lighting on the sign portion, it's backlit? Is that what?
Yes. Yeah. So the only letters that are going to actually be backlit are the letters that spell out Hive. So the and salon and spa will not be backlit. It'll just be, so at night, it's just going to pop out. Hive will pop out.
Okay.
And that should be kind of like a gold a gold color is what the hive will be.
Okay. And the height of the lighting, it looks like is that 160 inches? Is that whatever that panel where the hive is across, I should say, that's where the lights will be mounted?
Yes, yeah.
Along in line with the hive area?
Yep. So our initial meeting with you guys, we did that. It's a wooden panel, and so yep, it's just going to go right over exactly where he's highlighting.
Yeah, that there. And how about the other 4 hanging lamps? Are they going to be lined up in line with that? Is that?
Yep, they're just lined up right across. And I think in the picture where there is nothing on it, where it's existing building, I believe you can actually see where our electrician has already planned for lighting to go. Yep, you can see that right there.
Oh, I see. Yeah. All right. All right, then. Do you have any other items or discussion you'd like to add, Nicole? Or is that?
I do not.
Okay.
The only other,
I'm sorry.
sorry, I was going to say, Mr. Chair, the only other clarification we were looking for was just the color and level of luminescence of those outdoor
Oh,
fixtures.
that's right. Yeah.
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I guess that would just be whatever that you guys tell me I need to do.
Was it?
The design guidelines, excuse me, call for a low level of luminescence. So I think we would just want to review the, lumen output from those lights, and then also a white light that's similar to daylight was the preference from a color standpoint. So just wanted to verify those with you.
Yep, perfect.
Okay. Thank you. Jennifer, Katie, any comments, questions to be brought up?
No.
All right, then. In that case,
See if we have any other members of
any
the public or anybody joining that wants to comment.
it doesn't appear anybody is there? No, Dustin says no. All right, then. I guess I'm ready to accept a motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend option number 2 with the condition that they come back if they have any significant changes.
All right. Jennifer?
Do we want to add anything about the luminescence and the lights before I second that?
I think we would just get those specifications from the sign contractor when the actual permit comes in. What Tyler's referring to, what we're trying to avoid is the type of light that you might have in a LED street light would be something that would not be consistent with the guidelines, because it's looking for a warmer, more daylight luminescence. So we would just work with the sign and lighting contractor to make sure it's more about each of the types of light fixtures are rated for a certain amount of lumens, and probably the highest level of lumens anywhere you would see in the city would be underneath a gasoline canopy. Those convenience stores, the lights that they project down on the pavement probably have the highest level of lumens of any types of lights around, and then parking lot lighting has a lower level of luminance. So we would just look at that at the time that the permit details are submitted, because I don't think we could expect the applicant to have that at this point. That's more of a technical question for the electrician.
Okay, then I will second Jennifer's motion.
Okay, moved and seconded. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion carried. Then, thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Yes, so then Dean, do we have any administrative items? or-
There's no administrative items to bring forward in terms of business for the board. We don't have any issues. We're glad to have Leslie Bishop joining us today, and I don't know if she's got any preliminary discussion items she wanted to bring up to the board. But if not, the only other business that we would have for you would be that it does not look like we would be holding a meeting on March the 24th because it doesn't look like we have anything filed for that meeting, but we will notify board members either way of a meeting cancellation or if something pops up, but as it looks now, we will not meet on the 24th.
Okay, thank you. And we, other than Leslie, I don't think we have anybody present from the public. And so
Just glad to be here this afternoon.
thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
I think both renderings look amazing, and it will just add to the excitement that's already in downtown Salina. So thank you for approving those.
You're welcome. All right, then, well, if we have no further items,
Doesn't look like we have
Nobody
anyone
from the
for public
public?
forum.
yeah. So then I guess I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Katie moved,
Second it.
seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, then, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.